Welcome to another edition of Our Conversation at Archimichael. Today we have two special guests who are going to be speaking to us about autism. I'd like to welcome the lovely lady, Ms. Major Fox, and Mr. Keith Miller. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Glad to have you. So, you're representing the organization Families on the Spectrum Bahamas.
Yes.
Very new organization, and you're an organization trying to bring awareness of autism to the broader scope of the Bahamas.
Yes.
Mr. Miller, can you please tell us what is autism?
In layman's terms, you could describe it as being a neurological disorder that usually manifests itself between the ages of 12 months to 16 months in a child. It is actually almost a shutting down of their ability to function in a normal way that you expect a child that age to be in. But it's not only children, because these children grow up to be adults. So it's something that covers a wide range of ages, from 12 months to any age.
Also, so it's something that they basically grow with for their lives, and they have to learn to, well, I guess they function, because they know they process information differently.
It's not a matter of processing information. It's not a receiving problem. It's a transmitting problem. They don't know how to communicate in a normal fashion.
Okay.
Their communication skills are limited. They see the world differently from we do. They live in a private world that you don't understand. So in most cases, a person who is dealing with autism, who has that disorder, you have a hard time just understanding what they're going through. They are like a mystery. You can't seem to have a one-on-one relationship with them.
Okay.
It's difficult.
So Ms. Fox, how do you identify a child with autism?
Well, speaking from my personal experience with my son, who's 3 years old and was diagnosed at the age of 2, around the age of 18 months, we noticed that he didn't give eye contact. There were incidents where he would not, if we called him, he would not respond. At some point, we began to think maybe he couldn't hear or he was being rude. What I know now, he had a food aversion. He would refuse certain textures of food, certain colors. He was not talking to us. He would not respond. He would, he wouldn't say, "Mommy, Daddy, come here. Mommy, Daddy, I want to go outside." He was basically nonverbal.
So, to the normal person, you'd think that the child is therefore or just being responsive to another.
Yes, a person who was unaware of what autism is, they would, have that notion. Yes.
So how did you find out? Did you go to a pediatrician and then find out that there was?
Once I started to notice those things, I Googled. I started researching, and I would type in child not responding, not talking. That's a milestone that most children meet by the age of 2, and he had not met that milestone. And so I did my own research initially.
All right, and then you noticed the signs based on the information then?
Based on the information that I would have found, yes.
Mr. Miller, so what are some of the signs that you have noticed about children with autism?
Well, one of the more prevalent signs is that if you notice your child walking a lot on their toes, tippy-toeing constantly, that's a very strong indication that they are a very reasonable candidate for autism. If you see them stemming, they repeat the same actions over and over, like they take a ball, they roll it back and forth, they repeat the same actions, they can't seem to control themselves. That's a clear sign in most cases that they may be suffering from autism.
Is it like they're, what do you call it, the fidgeting, where they just constantly, because I don't know if that makes sense, like constantly just doing a motion over and over, just is that similar or something different?
It's a little different. It's not just a fidgeting here and there. It's the same fidgeting.
It's like an obsession.
They become obsessed with doing the same thing repeatedly over and over, and they don't get tired of it.
No.
Like they would run to that wall and touch it, go back to the next wall and touch it. They could do that 50, 60, 100 times before they get bored.
Mm-hmm.
It's a repetitive thing that they can't. It's like their mind hits a loop that they don't know how to stop.
And are there any other things or any other signs?
If you find sometimes that they have emotional outbursts that doesn't correspond to the behavior at the time, like they just get emotional, or they cry on occasions where
Outbursts, like
the cry is
shouting.
not appropriate,
Yes.
or it's an overreaction.
Inconsolable. They're inconsolable.
They have high emotions.
Ms. Fox, what are some of the problems that families with children with autism face?
We're at a point where school is now about to open in a couple of weeks, and we have at this point where there are about 15 to 20 children between the ages of 18 months and 6 years who have no option for school. They have some of them, in one case I know of, the child has been put out of the school, told to find another option. My personal situation is I'm awaiting word from a particular school that's within the area where we live to get back to me and say, well, yes, we will take him.
Oh, and that's because of accommodation. Well, them being able to accommodate it.
They're not equipped to take on children that have autism. When I say not equipped, they don't have the personnel that would be trained to give him the necessary therapies that he would need.
Finding a school that has the facility set up properly, the staff trained adequately, at a reasonable cost. You won't believe what it costs right now. We have something called ABA. It's a type of treatment. It's applied behavioral analysis that all the international autism groups recommend that you use to try to bring your child some relief. Currently in this country right now, it costs about $70 an hour. They recommend that each child should receive 40 hours a week. Right now, currently, I can only afford 3 hours a week.
Yes.
3 hours a week is like we're now applying band-aids to gunshot wounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to look at it.
Yes.
It's just totally inadequate. We just can't afford it. The biggest concern we have, I would say, would be financing. We cannot find the funds necessary to give our children a chance
Yes.
to get past this disorder. We just don't have the money.
Right now, with ABA therapy, we have 2 certified specialists on the island. 2 speech therapists. We have 3 on the island. And at this point, they're all booked. So even if we were able to afford to put in more hours, like Mr. Miller alluded to earlier, you would need about 40 hours. Even if we were able to afford that, we wouldn't be able to, book those persons to administer those therapies to our children because there's a limitation. That is a huge concern for us.
Personally, I took my daughter to one of them and I found out they're speech therapists, but they're not speech therapists for autistic children. They require a particular type of speech therapist.
So they don't have to train it for it.
Like some schools may decide that they may put autistic children in this category as remedial learners. No, it's not a remedial problem. It's a specialized problem. It requires special skills.
Mm-hmm.
And each child is different. There is no one blue pill that you take that can solve the problem. Each child has a different set of problems. So each child has to be assessed individually, and a program has to be designed for that particular child that could deal with his particular problems. Autism is not you reach in the bag and pull out. They're all going to be the same. They're all unique and individual. So each specialist has to focus on that one child at a time. You can't put a class, 10, 12 children in a class and deal with an autistic class. Autistic classes will not work. It requires one-on-one specialists. That's the problem we have. There are not enough specialists in this country to deal with the problem.
So they just need individual, custom-tailored programs for each one.
Yes.
It's just overwhelming that this is just so much information.
This is an ongoing problem that needs to be treated as a crisis.
Yes.
Because if these children don't receive the kind of treatment they need at the earliest possible age. It usually should start soon after they're diagnosed as having autism. The chances of any being able to function in society later on diminishes as each year passes by. If these children are left out of school without any help, there's little or no chance that they'll be able to function as a productive member of society in this country. So we have to treat this like it's a crisis.
Yeah.
It is a crisis.
It is a crisis.
Families are in crisis. Children are in crisis when it comes to autism. We have to decide, are we going to leave them behind and hope we catch up later, which doesn't work, or are we going to jump in now and deal with the issues?
Yes. You know, Mr. Miller mentioned that early intervention is key, and I concur. I have discovered, during my research here at home, that the Marjorie Davis School, initially it was meant to be a school designated for children with autism. I don't know what happened, but something else is happening there. But I do understand that there is space there that can be utilized as an early intervention center. You know, it doesn't have to be anything big. If you start small, at least something is already in place. And so I'd like to, recommend or suggest that, possibly the government is able to partner with the local therapists here who are certified and try and put together a program that would reach these children between the ages of 18 months to 5 years to get something started. Cannot just ignore it and hope that they catch up. If we put some measures in place, at least something would have started to get them on the right track.
Is there any statistical data that we can, know how many persons are affected by autism?
At this point, no. There is no statistical data. Right now, we just have knowledge through petitions that would have been signed, basically parents reaching out. But what I do understand, REACH has, been around for a while dealing with autism in the Bahamas. They have reached out to Autism Speaks in America to see if they would come in, try and help us to get this data. But that has not been signed off on as yet. And we would like to see the relevant ministers, authorities, if they could please sign off on it to have those persons come in and get that data so that we can have, something that says, well, we have this number of boys, this number of girls, and the age ranges and all of that information that would help us to get these children the help they need.
Wow. And what ratio you think right now, without having any data, of persons in our society that are affected with autism?
The research that I've done on what's happening in the U.S., their data says that 1 in every 57 male children are born with autism. 1 in every 253 females are born with autism. So if you calculate how many people in Bahamas, approximately 400,000, and we probably have about 7,000 people in this country who probably have the autism disorder right now.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think many of them may have been categorized as retarded, slow, remedial, difficult, disruptive, when in fact the problem is they may be autistic.
Mm-hmm.
Until we get Autism Speaks, that group, to come in and to assist us in trying to evaluating exactly where we are today, or whenever they reach, how many people are in fact are dealing with this disorder, then we have a better chance to say, put together programs to address the numbers.
Yes.
Because the numbers may be even greater than what we realize.
Yes, I agree with that.
Wow. What does it cost to address a child with autism?
The cost is astronomical. To be as blunt as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It is way beyond the reach of the average family.
Mm-hmm.
The child requires ABA, applied behavioral analysis, they require occupational therapy, and they require speech therapy. The ABA is to help them to identify, to be able to read, write, but they have to be taught in a way that an autistic child has to be taught. The speech therapy, because they have a communication problem.
Mm-hmm.
They absorb, but they give little back out.
Mm-hmm.
So it encourages them to communicate. The occupational therapy is their interaction skills are lacking. They will not come in here and interact with any of us. They would go in a corner and play by themselves. It equips them with the skills that they can be functional in the community. Each one of them probably costs at the minimum $70 an hour. When you add up that you need about 40 hours ABA, but 8-9 hours of occupational, another 10 hours of speech, you're talking $3,000 to $4,000 per week. Just to be able to give your child a chance to break free of this autism disorder. The average family, if they try to meet these needs, they'll be bankrupt within 6 months.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, piggybacking off of that, you've had families that have lost their homes. Marriages are being broken apart. You have, in some instances, the wife and child have moved, relocated to the US, maybe Canada, to get services for the child while the father remains here with the other children. Hence, I would like to appeal to the government of the Bahamas, the relevant ministers, Minister of Social Services, Minister of Education, and Minister of Health, the Prime Minister. We can address this problem. It's not impossible. We can start small and make progress as time goes on, but we cannot continue to ignore the cries of our children. We are here as the voice of the children, our own personal children, as well as children, the other, children around the entire Bahamas, Freeport, Abaco, Acklands, Andros, wherever they are. I'm appealing to the government to meet with us. Let's discuss how we can move this forward, how we can make some progress to bring some relief to these families. We're able to, the families it's not going to be that difficult to address some of the needs. I know it will require some funding, but let's discuss ways that we can have this funding come into play without the families being burdened.
We will give up things for ourselves in order that our children can benefit. So the average parent is going to sacrifice whatever they have to sacrifice to make sure the child has a fighting chance. And I think the government or whoever wants to step in should treat this as we treat a disaster. When a hurricane blows in, someone steps in and tries to bring relief. This is like a hurricane. Families are being blown away.
Yes.
Someone needs to try to step in to help us put the pieces together so we can function again. This, like she said, it destroys families, it destroys marriages. People have to leave the country so they can get help from the United States. We'll have programs that are free. We presently have no relief. None. There's no disaster relief for children and parents who are dealing with this disorder. We know that the government funding is going to be extremely small, if there be any at all. We now have to appeal to private citizens whom God has blessed financially to try to find it within themselves to come to our rescue. Not for the parents' sake, but for the children's sake. These children, they may appear to be oblivious to what's going on around them, but they realize and we realize that their lives are not being lived to the fullest. And we as parents, we just want to see our child maximize themselves. Currently, there are no facilities available that could help these children just to step up one step higher at a time. If somehow people can step in and find it within their hearts to say, I'm gonna assist. They assist in other projects. If they want to treat us as a project, we will accept that. If Rotary or Kiwanis or whoever is looking for a worthy cause to sponsor and to help finance, autism is an extremely worthy cause. You're going to allow children to be all they can be. We often look at children, we call them our little darlings. We have to save these little darlings now. Because the longer we wait, the crisis will mount higher and higher. And if we wait too long, nothing will be done.
If the government would allow the University of Bahamas, they have facilities there. If the government would allow these specialists who are certified to put on training programs, they're more than willing to do that. Of course, there would need to be some sort of compensation for their services, but they are willing to do it. It's not necessarily a situation where the government would have to bring in specialists to put on these programs.
Because there is,
Let's
yeah.
source the persons that we have here. We have persons like Ms. Carla Gibson. She's an ABA, a board certified ABA specialist. She's, excellent at what she does, and she's willing to help out in that area. You have persons like Ms. Charles Roberts, Ms. Shanika McIntosh. They have all come on board with their support, and these are Bahamians. And so let's source the persons that we have here. Let's get with the knowledge that they have, let them impart it, and let's get something started to address this situation, because like Mr. Miller has said earlier, this is a crisis. I understand that we have a chief child psychologist, Dr. Michelle Major. She has said that each week she's diagnosing at least 3 children. And so when you do the math, 3 children per week times 52, this is not something that's going away. It's increasing and definitely needs some attention.
So in closing, I would like each one of you to give, in a nutshell, your view on what you would want to see happen going forward.
Well, from my view, what I'd like to see happen, let's say for September, I'd like to see a unit up and running for early intervention. We had said earlier it's key. And early intervention, when I say early intervention, I'm talking about children between the ages of 18 months to 5 years. They are able to go to a facility and have therapists come in each day and give them their hours of therapy, as well as address their academic needs.
She went a little further than I would go. I would just like to get back to a basic thing first. I would like to see the government officials or whoever the leaders of these ministries find the motivation to step up and to step in and do something. We don't want talk. We don't want the rhetoric. We don't want we're gonna look at it. We
Yes.
consider it. We're gonna get back to you next month, or we're gonna meet in session, or when cabinet meets again.
You just want to be acknowledged.
Not just acknowledge. I want them to show an interest, a genuine, sincere interest in the well-being of the children who are affected by autism. I think when they develop the interest, all these other things, when they are motivated to do something, then things will happen. Until that happens, until they actually have a concern, we're just going to be spinning our wheels. So my goal is to see them show some genuine interest in helping these children.
Well, in light of that, maybe it would be possible for them to, for us to have an audience with the relevant ministers.
That would be great.
If they're all the persons that, are all involved, we connect with the ministers, we connect with the specialists, we have the families, everybody sit down to the table, and let's just discuss the way forward. We'd like to appeal for that to happen.
I think the government leaders who are made up of politicians need to realize there are some big numbers involved.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of families affected.
Definitely.
There's a mother and father, there are uncle and aunts,
Cousins.
and
Mm-hmm.
to ignore that this number is growing, it's going to become a force that they're going to have to recognize and deal with. It's better that they deal with us on a friendly basis and reach out to us now, because it's going to grow, and we're going to get bigger, and we're going to have a say. We're not going to be ignored.
No.
We're not going to accept no.
No.
We're not going to go away.
No.
We're not going to get pushed to the back burner, because it's our children.
Yes.
We are highly motivated.
Yes.
We're not going to be stopped. We will have a voice. We will get results.
Is your organization again?
Families on the Spectrum Bahamas.
How can persons get in contact with you?
We are currently on Facebook, and there's a contact there via WhatsApp. We are, like Mr. Miller said, growing daily. So if anyone is interested in reaching out, has concerns that they would like us to put forward, they can reach us definitely on Facebook. I can give my personal contact would be 646-1838.
This is going to be an ongoing conversation because there's a lot more information that we want to share with you. So stay tuned. Until next time.